of Laverne. And we're so excited that because of a federal Title V grant, we're able to expand our offerings around financial literacy / what we like to call financial well-being over the coming 5 years. And so this spring, we're really lucky to have Rick Hasse in the College of Business and Public Management, who I'll be introducing in just a moment, doing 3 short workshops for us. He has such great knowledge that he's sharing with the community. And as this program builds over the next 5 years, you can expect more and more of this. So we really hope that you like what you hear today and you'll continue to join us over the coming years to, collectively increase our financial literacy as a university, whether you're a student or staff member or faculty. Just really happy to have you here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Rick Hasse. Mr. Hasse has been working for over 35 years in the accounting and finance field. His career has included management in both profit and not-for-profit companies. He's taught undergraduate and graduate accounting and statistics at the community college and collegiate level, a member of the faculty in the College of Business and Public Management at the University of Laverne since 1990. He's also taught at the Claremont Colleges, Ithaca College, and Tompkins Cortland Community College. Mr. Hasse currently writes a bi-weekly blog entitled Rink Rats. It's great, you should check it out. Hopefully he'll link it in the chat later. Financial management experience includes mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, and investment banking in industries including not-for-profit colleges, medical supplies, real estate development, and transportation services. He has an MBA in finance and accounting from the University of Laverne and a BA in economics and government from St. Lawrence University. He lives in Claremont. His passions are writing, golf, hockey, and investing. And we're so lucky to have him with us today to talk with us about personal budgeting and financial planning. Welcome, Rick, and all of the participants.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. Looks like we have a great mix, just like our first session, of current students, of staff, of alumni. And I thank you all for being here. This is part of our Spring Financial Wellbeing series that we're initiating this year. And as Sarah just mentioned, we hope to make this a yearly thing where we provide these sessions to help you all manage your daily lives outside of your managing your Laverne lives. And we welcome you here. And if you have any questions, or just open up your mic or send a chat, and Lexi will forward that on to me, because this is designed for you. All of us, as you can see George Washington here on the front of your screen, money can be a royal pain in the neck, all right? Managing money, managing financial affairs. Why aren't you on a budget? Because money scares the hell out of me. That's why I'm not on a budget. And all those things make it very difficult to run our daily financial lives. It's hard, not easy. And if we don't, we're intimidated. Many of us are intimidated by money. Many of us are intimidated by the process. It's difficult. But in today's world, if you can be on top of money management, if you can be on top of planning for the future, you have a great advantage. You have a great advantage in earning extra money. You have a great advantage in having less stress in your life. And I think that's a key for a lot of us, is money management hopefully can reduce the stress in our life. All right. And that's one of the purpose of this. We all come from different money backgrounds. We all come from different situations. Cultural situations, family situations, environment situations, academic background situations, and all of these require our own personal expertise in managing our financial affairs. So this workshop or seminar today is designed to give you the basic areas of what you should maybe look at or concentrate on to feel comfortable. The most important thing about personal management is just feel comfortable. Reduce the stress in your life. You don't have to know where every nickel is. You don't have to say, oh, geez, I can't do that this summer because I didn't plan for it. Don't let it dictate your happiness in your life. Let it manage and hopefully help you manage your daily life better and less stressful. And I like to use the premise of You want to be smart. And I call it the SMART approach. And I know this sounds I sound like Dave Ramsey. If anyone knows who Dave Ramsey is, he's a talk show host in financial affairs. He has a big YouTube site, and he's a big proponent of thinking on your own. And I agree with that. You want to be smart about the goals of your financial life. Specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-based. You should have short-term goals and you should have long-term goals. You should be realistic. Oh, I'm going to have $1 million by the time I'm 30. That's wonderful, but you got to be realistic. Oh, I think I can win the lottery and I can be able to retire when I'm 45. Really? You got to be realistic. And as I tell my students in a lot of classes, the best key to success is have a lot of common sense. Common sense. Everybody is intelligent. You're intelligent in your fields that you've chosen. You're intelligent in your own life, but you have to be realistic and understand that it doesn't always work out that way. And be able to be specific. Where do you want to get to financially in 5 years? Where do you want to be financially in a year? Mr. Hasse, I don't even know where I am financially now. And that's the key point, is you have to understand and be measurable. What's your income now? How much debt do you have now? And you don't need a computer to do all this either. I don't want anybody to run out and buy $1,000 worth of software and applications and put it all in a computer and say, okay, there it is. Go ahead and do it. No, you can just keep this in a notebook. I carry a notebook around with me in my car, in my golf bag, in my briefcase. Everywhere I go, I carry a notebook. And when I spend money or when I think about doing something involving money, I write it down. I don't need to input it into a computer. I just take very simple, measurable notes. I'd like to call it a 6-step process to keep it simple. Again, the key to feeling comfortable with your finances is keeping it simple. First of all, determine your current financial situation. Where do you stand? And I know sometimes this turns us off right from the get-go. I don't want to know how much money I earn. I don't want to know how much money I owe. I don't know how much money my husband has. I don't know what we're spending money on. No, you got to do that if you want to have some comfort. I know it's difficult, but you need to understand and determine your current financial situation. Once you have that, you can develop a goal. I want to go on a family vacation this summer. Or next year at this time, I'm going to invest in graduate school. I want to go to graduate school. I'll be after I graduate. Or I want to take a gap year and I want to take some time off and maybe find a job or maybe make some money or maybe do some community service. And then I want to go to graduate school. Well, that's a great goal. Can you afford it? Can you afford it? Identify your courses of action and also at the same time, think out plan B. Think about plan C. What are other alternatives you could do that it will still give you satisfaction? But what happens if you can't go to graduate school in another year? What happens if you don't financially can't take a gap year and you got to find a job now? Then you find a job in something you enjoy doing. This morning and this afternoon, we had career day remotely on campus. It's a wonderful opportunity to kind of figure out where you want to go career-wise, where to ask the questions about where you want to go career-wise. And some of us, even the staff and alumni of Laverne, many of us are constantly evolving. Just because you graduated from college doesn't mean your life is set. Far from it. You're still evolving. You're still developing. Heck, I'm 60 years old. I'm still trying to figure things out. So that's a constant process, and that makes it refreshing. That makes it good. Evaluate the alternatives. Evaluate your life situation. Do you want to get married? Do you want to start having a family? Do you have to, when do you have to be responsible maybe for your parents? Sarah and I were talking about this before we came on board. Maybe down on the horizon, you're going to have to take care of your parents or your grandparents, or maybe you have a brother or sister who's going to need you. You have to consider that and take that into account in your planning process. Nothing wrong with that. I take care of my father. And if something happened to my sisters and my family, I would be there for them. These things happen. It's part of being a member of a family. And then once you have this somewhat sorted out, your goals, the timeline maybe, create an action plan. I'm going to save $100 a month in my savings. Or I'm going to pay off my student loan, and when that student loan is paid off, then I'm going to think about graduate school. Or I'm going to ask my employer, can you help me go to graduate school? You're going to devise various alternatives and plans to make this successful. And you keep it simple. You keep it simple. The process of managing your money to achieve personal economic satisfaction. That's a key. Your financial plan could be written on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be in a fancy computer software package. It can just be, what are my goals for the next 6 months? What are my goals for the next year? What are my goals for 2 years? I'm going to pick on Lexi here because I've had her in class. Lexi just started working at Laverne. She's developing a career, but she still doesn't know where she's going to be probably in 5 years. She might be someplace totally different. But you kind of point yourself in the direction. Maybe I might want to go to graduate school in the next 5 years because I really like this education business. I really want to concentrate on it, and maybe I need an advanced degree to process further. It doesn't have to mean it's going to happen. It gives you an idea of where you want to go, and then you can project out your financial need. What are you going to need to do that? The advantages are enormous to do this. It protects yourself and gets you prepared for any changes in your life. I have a lot of students in my regional campus programs who are coming back to school mainly because they got the divorce. And they're out on their own again now. Nothing wrong with that. Their financial picture has changed because of life. And now they're going back to schools to develop their skills and give them financial independence. If any of you know that, that is huge in your life, especially for women these days. Women need financial independence. We're creating those opportunities for women more. To increase the control that you have over your financial affairs, not a spouse, not a husband, not a parent, not a grandfather, but that's important, or a grandmother, but to increase your independence. That gives you personal satisfaction. It helps you with relationships. I'll tell you, if any of you are in a relationship and you're not honest or feel some tension when it regards to money or finance, that's not a solid relationship. You have to work on that. It frees you from that stress, and that's helpful. A lot of our parents have that problem, and in my generation, they don't like to share financial information. They feel it's embarrassing. It's none of your business. Trust me, to share it with people you care about and want to take care of, it's freedom. It's very important. There's a lot of trade-offs though in planning. I want to go to college and get a graduate degree. I want to get a new car. Someday, if you're living in Southern California, getting a home might be impossible. What do you have to sacrifice in time, in financial, in debt, in health to acquire these things? There's a trade-off, just like in anything else in life. And you have to balance that to your perspective in your life. And that's one of the great things about the Lewis Center. I'm going to get a little paid political announcement here. You need help in balancing your life through working out, through health, to eating right. And financial aspects are exactly the same as that. If you find that balance in your life, you'll be better off. And it doesn't mean don't beat yourself up because you can't drive a fancy car, or don't beat yourself up because you can't afford to go to graduate school. That's all right, because the other side of that is you're debt-free. You can live better. So there's always trade-offs, but the key thing is balance. Balance. I like to call it opportunity costs. All right, I'm going to keep driving my 1997 Ford Grand Marquis. And I drive around town and people go, well, there's Rick Hasse, because there's his old clunker he keeps driving. You know, you think Rick Hasse could afford a nice car. Why in the hell do I want to do that? Why do I want to take money out of my savings and I can use it on family vacations or buy something for my family and buy a new car. Who am I trying to impress? There's a balance there. That's an opportunity cost. Why should I get a new car? I'm losing the opportunity of having money to do other things. That's balance. That's important. This is kind of a bleh. This is like something out of the College of Business. Not all it does is give me a headache just looking at it. But it says one thing. You set a timeline, short-term and long-term goals. I would think a short-term planning and budgeting should involve minimizing your debt, taking care of credit card debts, establishing liquidity in your life. Find an apartment or rent that you can afford. Not because you're living down in Manhattan Beach and paying $3,000 a month for a studio. That's ridiculous, especially if you don't have the money. Balance your strategies with what you can afford. And then for those long-term strategies, where do you want to get to down the road financially? You probably, for a lot of us, pay off student loan debt over the course of the future. We want to get out from under that student loan debt. And we'll talk more about that in our third session in a few weeks about debt management. That's important. Maybe putting some money aside as an investment. Just having a savings account doesn't mean you have to get a Robinhood account or an E-Trade account. Just put some money in a savings account. And how is your life going to change? Are you just going to be single? Are you going to be getting married? Are you going to be having a family? Are you thinking about leaving California and going to other parts of the world or the country? There's nothing wrong with doing any of these, but you put your planning process providing you with the means to go about doing this. That's important. And what are your life situations? Your age group. Naturally, the older you get, the more probably financial responsibilities you have. But as a youngster, as a high school student, a freshman, a college student, just out of college, you have different goals than when you would be when you're 40, 45, or 50. But that's the long-term part of this. What do I need to be happy today? Can I pay my bills? Can I put some money aside? Can I be with my friends and family and enjoy life? I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to work 50, 60-hour weeks. But at the same time, the reason I'm working hard is I'd be able to save or pay off debt, be liquid. Your life situation and personal values guide your financial planning. What you want to do with your life. I want to find a job to give me happiness that's in community service. I want to work for the government. I want to work for the community. Boy, that's balanced because you're giving back to the community, you're earning a wage, and you're giving back to society. I want to be a teacher. I want to be an athletic coach. I want to work in a bank. All these things are fitting what you like to do. Nobody's telling you to be a banker. Nobody's telling you to be a coach. That's why going to Laverne and getting an education is trying for you to sort out what you enjoy doing. And for some of us, that even happens after we graduate of what we really want to do in life. That's part of the process. But don't let your financial management hinder you from finding what you want to do. It should help you find what you want to do. And within our economy, there's a lot of vehicles to help us plan. There's a lot of, your local banker, if you have a bank account, you can go in there and say, I need some help planning for the future. Tell me what I could do to save money. How can I go about saving money? How can I understand the financial markets to help me get to an investment idea? Your own employer here at the University of Laverne, our Human Resources Office has information for people to help you manage your money, retirement. And I keep saying this all the time. If you're a student at Laverne, you're a student and you're part of the Laverne community for life. We will help you when you're 50, not only when you're 20. We will help you when you're 70. Your professors, the staff here, you're part of us. You're not going to get rid of us. And that's one of the best things about being here. And that's one of the reasons why I work at Laverne, because I know that's a fact. We're here to help you in your life, not just taking your money for 4 years and saying, oh, get out, get lost, we never want to hear from you again. It's totally the opposite. Know what's out there to help you plan. You don't have to be on your own on this. There's people, there's institutions, there's mentors out there to help you. Now, how do I go about planning? Ugh. Mr. Hasse, I'm going to get a headache just thinking about this. Well, one of the key things to know about financial planning outside of your own everyday world, your job, your education, your family, is understand that your financial future is dependent on a couple of key things. One of it is inflation. It's the cost of money over time. The value of a dollar today is going to be different than the value of a dollar a year from now. Why? Inflation, the cost of money. And your buying power is reduced because of that. So you have to take that into account over the course of doing your financial planning. Understanding that money has a different value today than it does in the future. And understanding that rule can help you understand why you need to save. By saving and putting money aside, you're staying ahead of that inflation and reducing the value of your money. That's why it's important when you get a job is to open up a 401k. Or take $10 out of every paycheck and put it into the bank and don't touch it. Because you're beating the odds on the cost of money into the future by doing that. You're staying ahead of the game because you're allocating money that's going to be invested over time to keep up with inflation and have a greater value. That's a key to financial planning. Interest, the cost of money. Ooh. Interest is a definition of risk. The cost of money today is different in the future because of the value of money and the risk of the money in the future due to inflation, due to government taxation, due to world globalization. You could teach a whole class on this. The supply and demand of products and the supply and demand of you in the marketplace in getting a job. And how you're rewarded for that supply and demand based on your education and your experience as getting a paycheck. And how you want that to grow into the future. To stay ahead of the cost of money. And we'll talk more about interest in our next session when we talk about debt, because debt is the expense of borrowing money. But in regards to financial planning, you want to stay ahead of inflation. Now, a lot of us don't have any control over that. It's the government actions. It's our state and local actions. It's corporate America's actions. It's what happens in China, in Russia, in Italy, all around the world. But we can keep ahead of that by putting part of our financial planning into saving. We don't need everything now. We don't need a fancy car now. We don't need Nike tennis shoes. We need to save some money as well. And as I was talking about earlier, this leads into developing our financial goals. What do you want to do in the next year? Do you want to go on vacation? Do you want to pay off bills? Do you want to get married? Do you want to keep living at home so you can save money? Nothing wrong with that. Or do you want to leave home and go out on your own and see if you can handle this world on your own? What are your intermediate and long-term goals? How do you start saving for retirement? Maybe 2 or 5 years or 10 years, you might want to move out of California and buy a house and live someplace else. Or maybe you want to live in California and buy a house. All these are just, doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself now to get to these goals, but you've got to plan for them and understand what they cost and what they have to do, what you have to do to achieve those goals. I tell you what, I do this every year. At this time of year, tax time. Every tax time, I have to file a tax return. We all have to file tax returns. And part of my tax return process is not to get too depressed about how much I have to pay the government, but at the same time, I take an accounting of myself. What were my goals last year financially, and how have they resulted now, this time, a year later? What are my goals for the next year? And what are my goals in 5 years? What are my goals in 10 years? In 10 years, I hope I'm still alive. But what are my goals? And I do this every year. Some of us do it at the end of every year on New Year's, December 31st. Some of us do it on our birthdays. Some of us do it at other times during the year. I do it at tax time. But and again, it doesn't have to be fancy and complicated. You just take, all right, what do I want to do in the next year financially? And it doesn't even have to be financial, because to say, oh, I want to spend more time in giving back to the community. So that you're going to allocate time out of your day, out of your week, out of your month to work at a senior citizen center or to help coach a Little League baseball team. That's a good thing. That can also, you need financial goals because you're going to take the time out to do that. Now we get to the actual budget planning. Ugh. In my PowerPoint, I have a great little link to a website that I like to use. It's very simple, called thebalance.com. Sorry, guys, I happen to live next to the fire station in Claremont, and you can hear the fire engines go flying by, so I apologize for that. Thebalance.com is a great place to very simply begin the process of doing a budget. Hell, hey, I know a lot of administrators that have a tough time doing budgets. I know a lot of politicians have a tough time doing budgets. It's not easy doing a budget. You gather your financial information, you calculate, and you all know probably how much income you have. And this is a key. You create a list of your expenses. In my personal finance class, Lexi did this, and a few others of you have done this. As part of that class is we keep a spending diary throughout our class, throughout our semester. Every week, we keep a record of where we spent our money. And at the end of the class, we look at it and you go, I can't believe I spent $300 at Starbucks. I can't believe I spent $400 on my dopey friends. A lot of us don't understand where we spend our money. It begins of planning a budget is, where do you spend your money? Keeping track of that, keeping it in a notebook, putting it in your phone, keeping it in a spreadsheet, whatever. Where do you spend your money? And that just tells you a lot about yourself. And of those expenses, what are fixed and what are variable? Now, what do I mean by that? What part of your expenses you have to pay no matter what? That's a fixed expense. No matter how much you're earning, no matter how much you're working, you got to pay those no matter what. For some of our students here, maybe you give some money to your family while you're living at home. That's a fixed expense. For some of us, we have credit cards. We have to pay those bills. That's a fixed expense. Now, you can control that by not using your credit card, but you still got to pay it. Another fixed expense for some of us will be, I'd like to wear nice clothes, so I'm going to buy clothes. For us, for you personally, that's a fixed expense. For me, if any of you see my clothes, that's definitely a variable expense. I don't spend a lot of money on clothes. So the key thing is understanding, where do you spend your money? I think the income is a pretty easy part of that. You get a paycheck. You know how much you get paid. But where do you spend your money is important. And then once you get all that information, then you can begin to prepare a budget. And then you can make adjustments. Like I just said, I spend $300 last month on Starbucks. I'm going to start making coffee at home. The hell with that. Or I'll go to Starbucks once a week instead of 3 times a week. Then you can make adjustments to your expenses, because you realize, if I want to get to my financial goals, I can't spend this kind of money. I gotta manage my affairs better. And that's where comes the discipline. Understanding and not be in denial. Be comfortable with your money, because then you can say no to yourself. That ain't easy sometimes. You get a phone call from your homeboys. Hey, come on out, we're going clubbing. No, I can't go. I don't have the money this week. Come on, let's go clubbing. No, I'll go with you next week, but I can't come this week. I'm trying to save. I want to leave. I want to move out of the house. I want to get my own apartment. I want to buy a car. I want to go on a vacation. I want to go to graduate school. I'm going to start saving. There you go. That's the key thing to budget planning. The numbers are easy. It's the discipline and being able to be in charge of your own affairs. Not having mom and dad say, no, you're not doing this. Not having your brother or sister or your grandparents saying, no, you're not doing that. It's you saying, I'm doing this or I'm not doing this. That's the key thing to financial planning. Here's a spreadsheet that I use. And you can do this on a piece of paper. This is what I spend on a daily basis on transportation, rent, housing, food, health or personal care. If I go to the gym or I have a membership to a gym, how much I spend on my education, if I have school supplies, parking, how much I spend on recreation when I rent DVDs, how much do I give to the community in donations? I just keep a track of that. I do that for a couple of months. I kind of know where my money's going because I see patterns. I see patterns in where I spend money. I see patterns on how I do things. Me personally, if somebody tells you, here, I'm going to do a budget for you, tell them to get lost. The only person who can do a budget for you is you, because you know what you spend on. You know what your demands are, what you like to do and what you can't do. Some of us have a lot of fixed expenses. We have loans we have to pay off. We have a car loan to pay off. We have insurance of that car. Those are fixed expenses. That limits what we can spend doing other things. So the first thing to doing a budget is, where are you spending your money? I have financial records going back 30 years, and I can see over time, I'm kind of a geek about this, so I apologize. But I can see in 20 years ago where I was spending my money is totally different than where I'm spending my money today. Why? Because my life has changed. And I have adapted and changed my planning to meet that. This gives you a good snapshot on your own financial life and where you want to get to. A spending diary. So in conclusion, a financial plan and a financial budget is basically you being real with yourself. You being smart with yourself. Taking accountability in what you're earning. Knowing where you want to get to or what you want to do with the future. If you have student loan on the horizon, if you're a senior or a junior and you're in college, you know after 6 months after you graduate from college, you got to start paying your student loan off. Start planning for that now. Understanding that that's on the horizon, you have to be ready for that. When you're in the career services office and you're talking to people about your career and jobs and getting your resume in line, you know that you need a job just to meet these expenses down the road. And it's like that for our staff members or people who are older, who've already been to college, but they want to get to another part of their life. They want to buy a home. You want to go on a vacation. You have children that you want to provide for their college education. You have to start planning for that. Use those as vehicles to drive your understanding, your spending now and into the future. But take a hard look at yourself and your family situation and your life situation and understand what makes you happy. Because your financial plan should not be the driver of happiness or the driver of success. It should be the offshoot of that. It should make you feel that you understand why you're successful or why you're doing things in achieving your goals. It's the proof. It's not the driver of determining that. It's the proof that you have everything under control. And one of the biggest hindrances to this is debt. And that's what we're going to be talking about on April 28th is debt. Understanding credit. Understanding what's your FICO score. Because that drives your goals. Getting in over your head with debt, credit cards. When to finance an education and when not to. When to borrow a car and purchase a car, or should we lease a car? That's a good one. When should we rent an apartment or buy a home? It's all up to you as far as liquidity. Do you remember, debt credit is a fixed expense? You can't get out from under it. You got to pay it. So are you ready to handle that with your income? Are you ready to handle that in your financial life, that fixed expense of debt? When is it appropriate time for that? One of the biggest challenges for all of us these days is making sure we stay ahead of inflation, stay ahead of and being prepared for the future. Nobody knew that the pandemic was coming. Nobody knew what was going to happen in the last year. But if you had personal savings, and if you put some money aside in the past, you were prepared for this pandemic. And during the pandemic, if you were fortunate enough to keep your job and expenses were limited because you couldn't go to restaurants, you couldn't do vacationing, so you should have tried, maybe have saved more money. Now, I'm not saying if you didn't do that, that's wrong. But the key to financial planning is adapt to the circumstances around your life and change. And make sure by adapting to that, you're providing yourself the vehicle to establish your goals that you have made for yourself in the future financially. And don't do this by yourself. There's so many people out there that can help you. Mr. Hasse, I just don't want to deal with this. I just want somebody to point me in the right direction and help me. You can call up a professor. You can call up anybody. You can ask your coach. I see Coach Creech here. He's a wizard with financials. He's always taking my money on my golf course. He's got a lot of money on him. So there's all kinds of people out there. There's your banker where you do your banking. They want to keep you happy because they want you to keep your money in their bank. They'll do whatever they can. There's credit unions, just are wonderful vehicles to help you and mentor you with financials. So there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help you achieve this. It doesn't have to be complicated. 3 key areas. Know your income and what it might be or will be. What are your expenses? What's your spending? What are your priorities in spending and what you spend money on? And what are your goals for the future? Get those 3 under control. The rest is easy. And if you're a computer geek like me, you can have umpteen thousand spreadsheets going back and forth with all these numbers. Or if you just want to keep it simple, you keep a notebook. Here's my financial notebook. I just keep a notebook. I turn the page. I just wrote down all my spending and what I've done. What? My wife spent that? Oh my God, wait till I get out of this class. So there's all kinds of ways in keeping it simple for you because you know yourself better than anybody. So I didn't, if I didn't catch on all the aspects of budgeting, because I wanted to be fairly general, I don't want to freak too many people out with specifics or details. But if you need any help or want anything, again, I have my email address. Let me get back to it here. You can send me an email. I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. You can click on this site here. If you click on this, I have a YouTube playlist. You click on that site in our PowerPoint, and it goes immediately to a playlist of all kinds of videos to help you with personal finance, with planning, with budgeting, with spending money, with debt. Click on that YouTube playlist, and guess what? It's for free. Nobody's asking you to give a donation or anything. That's a good thing to have. So there's all kinds of things out there to help you. All kinds of situations and people here. At the Lewis Center, this is a community well-being institution on campus. Well-being mentally, well-being health-wise, well-being financial-wise. There's a lot of people here that can help you. So you don't have to worry about your dollar bills taking to look like George Washington. You want George Washington to be happy. You don't want money to be a pain in the neck. So any way we can help you, please do. So let's open up the floor for any questions. I saw the chat session expanding. So Lexi or anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now.
Yes, and I have some prepared to get us going.
Okay.
Nyla, I see you're saying, where can we access the recording to view again later? Lexi, if you would put in the Lewis Center YouTube channel, that would be great, so that everyone can see where these recordings are. And then Malik, for the YouTube playlist, Professor Hasse, are you able to copy from your PowerPoint and put it in the chat so people can go ahead and have that link?
I will do that while we're answering the other questions. Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
I put them for you already.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Carla asks, when should I begin to save for a house and for retirement? I'm 21 and will graduate in May.
Now, right now, Carla, it's important to, well, again, and as I said earlier, what fits into your lifestyle. Remember, I said earlier that it's a balance, like right here with this slide. Your financial planning is a balance. And do you want to put money aside for a home in the future, or a car, or some type of future goal? You're going to have to give up something now. Maybe you can't go out and buy some new clothes all the time. Or maybe you can't go on a vacation right now because you're saving for the future. Whatever balance you have, to create that balance. It depends how bad you want it. Is your number one priority in your life is to have a home in 10 years or 5 years? Then you should do everything you can do now to save money for that. And also, you have to manage your affairs. Remember, if you want something in the future, you're probably going to need borrowed money, a car, a graduate degree, a home. So that's your management of your financial affairs today. Your FICO score, your credit rating is a driver in whether you can achieve those goals of borrowing money in the future, because the better the FICO score you have, the easier you have to get that capital, the lower the interest rates will be. So again, you can't forget about managing your affairs today, because that leads to cheaper money down the road. You do what you can. For example, when I graduated from college, the first thing I did, because I had some parents and grandparents who grew up in the Depression in the 1930s, and the first thing they told me when I got to make some money, put money aside, save, save, save. That was my generation of my grandparents. My grandfather, who was not able to go to college, who barely graduated from high school, but he ended up starting his own company. And he had to start that company and develop it coming out of the Depression. Their cardinal rule was to save money. No matter any way you can, put money aside. Let it grow over time. And so my advice to you is save what you can. And it's a balance. Don't take $400 out of your paycheck of $1,000 and put it in savings if you're limited in what else you can do in your life. Maybe just $200 or $100, but do that consistently, paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. And here's another thing, and we can talk about this at another date. For the first 15, 20 years of my life, I had 2-3 jobs. and I was married. I had 2 or 3 jobs because I wanted, one job was to pay for my expenses. The other job was to pay for graduate school. The other job was entirely for saving. So some of us maybe can take a second job. I know that's harsh, but that's what I did. It's how bad you want it, how you balance your life. That's the answer to that question. I hope I answered it.
She says, great, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap 2 questions together. Shakisha asks, what's your recommended savings method? And Jessica asked, what kind of savings account should I get to help me grow my savings?
Well, recommended savings method, as I was just saying, it fits into your lifestyle. It fits into your financial situation. All right. If you're living at home with your parents or your family, and you don't have a lot of expenses, living expenses, which is great. And your expenses mainly are going for your school supplies and managing parking and your car to get back and forth to school. and then you have some extra money, then you take whatever extra money you have and put it into a savings account. And start simple, keep it simple. Don't go out and get a Robinhood app and start buying Bitcoins. Trust me, that's ridiculous. And no matter what they say, no matter somebody say, hey, yeah, I got Bitcoins last year and I'm up 150,000%. Trust me, next year at this time, they could be down 150,000%. Keep it simple. Put it in a savings account. Get to a particular goal. $1,000. Once I get $1,000 in my savings, then maybe I can put 50 bucks into a Robinhood account. But build up that liquid savings. Nothing wrong with a savings account. Yes, it's not sexy. It only earns about 0.0054% per month, but it's safe and it gets you into the discipline of savings. Nothing wrong with that. Credit unions have wonderful savings plans. And you get to a certain point, you end up having like $500 in your account, then you can roll it over into maybe a longer term savings or a higher interest savings. You can get a money market account. But keep it simple. Remember, this is all the money you have, so you don't want to put it in Bitcoins. And don't let anybody fool you about that. You work too hard to get your money. You don't want to lose it in going online one day and say, what the hell, what happened to my money? It's gone. Oops. Why did I buy Bitcoins? Why did I invest in XYZ Corporation? It can go as fast as it grows. And don't let anybody kid you. So keep it simple, savings accounts, money market funds, keep it liquid. You're not going to earn much income, but it's safe and you're developing a discipline. Then when you get to a particular point in time, then you can be a little bit more aggressive. Okay.
Speaking of discipline, I really loved what you said about discipline and not being in denial, right? Because just like any other way we care for our well-being, it does take discipline. And that means it's a consistent practice. It's not sort of a one-off, right? So that's something I've found with budgeting is it's consistency that pays off. And as soon as you sort of get into that denial mode and the discipline goes, that's when things sort of start to unravel. So I love that. I'm going to piggyback on the savings question, and then Natasha, I'll get to your question as well. But when someone's starting out budgeting and they have debt to pay off, but they also want to build this savings, how do you recommend them balancing those two things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's every one of us have to deal with that. Well, first of all, your first responsibility for your own credit record and credit standing is to pay off your debt in the installments that's been agreed upon by that debt. If you make monthly payments, pay it off, meet the payments every month. One of the things I recommend for most people, if you have a student loan that you have to pay $250 a month, pay $300. If you have a student loan that you have to pay $250 a month and you can afford it, pay $400. Try, if you can, with your income, try to pay off that debt quicker. It helps your credit rating, and at the same time, it puts you in a better position down the road to get more credit. Try to pay it off quicker, okay? You can't do that, all right, fine. So you pay off, you have enough money as a fixed expense to pay off your debt payment every month, then whatever you have left over, maybe go to Vegas once a year instead of twice a year. And instead of that second trip to Vegas, you put that $400, $500 in the bank. If you want to be even more disciplined, set small goals. $10 a week, put into a savings account. Well, Mr. Hasse, that's not really great. Are you kidding me? $10 a week for 52 weeks a year, that's $520. Do that for a year, 1 year, you got $1,000. And plus you're going to add a little interest to that. It's not meaningless. Over time, it grows. One of the coolest things in your life is when you make an investment today and see what it's worth 10 years later. Wow. You should do that. $10. Or if you have a second job, or if you buy a lottery ticket, you win $20. Put that in the bank instead of blowing it. That takes discipline. And some of us, I know for me, that's difficult. And so, but you just have to manage. And sometimes you're gonna slip. You know, I want to go out and I need some new clothes. All right, so this week go get some clothes. Fine, don't beat yourself up about it. You just manage it and try to stay as consistent as you can. That's the key.
That's great. We've got some good questions rolling through, but I'm going to go back up to Natasha's question, which is just what books or resources do you recommend to further learn about finance? And I know you have your great YouTube playlist here, but any others you'd recommend?
I have a great list, and I'll forward that to Lexi, so she has that available, or you can email me and I'll email you. I have a list of about 4 or 5 books that are just wonderful personal finance books that are great reading and can help you. So, but also if you're a student at Laverne, here's a little paid political announcement. Take our personal money management class that's offered in Kappa. Take our personal finance class senior year in the College of Business. Those are wonderful classes, and we're developing, and we're talking right now with the freshman program Flex of maybe having a freshman class on personal finance. And also these seminars that we're going to be offering hopefully in the future, where we have these vehicles. These are wonderful places to start, and you can follow up as much as you want down the road. But I'll make that list available to Lexi so you have it.
That's great. And as I was saying, if you're registered via Campus Labs for this event, we'll email that to you. If not, you can direct message Lexi your email address. And if you haven't already, when Lexi puts the attendance link in the chat, she just put it in here, please do mark yourself present so we have that information. That would be wonderful. We'll make sure to get you these resources. And I also believe Lexi's going to put the PowerPoint for today's presentation in the chat as well for you to be able to download.
And that'll have the links as well.
There we go. So let's see here. Going back up, Nyla asks, how many credit cards is too many?
More than one. Okay. You know, it depends on your financial situation. You know, I'm an old gangster. I've been around the block. So I have 3 credit cards. I have 1 credit card for travel. I have 1 credit card for personal expenses. And I have 1 credit card for just emergency. Okay. Now you can do that all on 1 card. Okay. But you don't want a lot of credit cards. First of all, it puts more leverage in your life. And that's what the FICO people look at. They don't want you to have a lot of leverage. They want you to be able to manage your debt. By having access to a lot of credit, sometimes gets the credit agencies a little nervous. So for a student starting out, get 1 credit card with a $500 limit. That's it. That's all you need. $500. If you have to spend more than $500, you got to set your priorities. All right. With $500 credit limit, you can rent a car, you can get a hotel room, you can do a lot of things. Keep it simple. Then a couple years out of college, you're establishing yourself. You got a company that you're loyal to that's giving you raises every year, pay raises, even though small. You're establishing yourself in your community. Then apply for a credit increase. In many cases, the credit card company will probably give you one anyways. You got to watch out for that. And that'll be a topic in my session in a couple of weeks. Watch out when all of a sudden your credit card, without even asking you, increases your line of credit. Very dangerous. I would keep it simple. I know this sounds kind of boring. 1 credit card is fine. That's all you need. Because if more credit cards, the greater the temptation to go to Vegas with the homeboys. The greater the temptation to maybe buy that extra suit when you shouldn't have. The greatest temptation to go to Ruth Chris instead of McDonald's. Trust me, I've been there and I've done that. You want to limit that temptation. And that's what credit can do. It tempts you. So 1 is fine. Okay.
All right. So I think Caitlin was asking earlier, she says, is that the same for credit cards? I think this was in the context of paying that little bit extra. And you were giving the example of if you have a $250 student loan and you can afford it, pay $300. Does that apply to credit cards as well, Caitlin?
Well, with credit cards, I would try. So for example, I pay for all my golf on credit card. I could pay in cash, but these days in the pandemic, a lot of businesses don't take cash. So I pay on credit card. But I know every month I'm going to have probably a $300 bill. I pay it off every month. When I put something on the credit card, I say to myself with that discipline, all right, if I had cash, I would buy this anyways, but I'm using the credit card for convenience. I'm still going to pay it within 30 days when I get the bill. Have yourself in that discipline. Now, naturally, sometimes if an emergency comes up and you have to use a credit card to buy your textbooks, or you have to use a credit card to go away on a family trip or emergency, you're going to go over and beyond that. And maybe you'll have to spread out those payments over 2 months. But trust me, if you can pay off a credit card bill every 30 days and pay it off entirely, your FICO score will dramatically increase.
Yeah.
Dramatically.
I have so many questions for you that I'm going to save for your next workshop.
Okay.
But Gail asks, if you can't pay student loan, is it at least better to pay interest that accrues?
Well, first of all, the first thing I recommend is you talk to your loan agency about that. A lot of people get scared of the IRS. A lot of people get scared of banks. These are regular people. They understand the situations you are in, okay? And if they want to stay in business, they're going to try to help you manage this, especially the IRS, but that's a subject for another session. But if you go to your loan agency where you pay your student loan to and say, listen, I'm stretched. Here's my current financial situation. I'll even show you my paycheck. I can only do this now. And they might say, okay, we recommend you pay interest only and we'll defer. But when they say the word defer, your next question is, am I going to have to pay for this deferral down the road in extra late payment fees or extra interest costs? Make sure you ask every question. And if you don't know the questions you ask, before you go talk to them, you talk to me or you talk to somebody who's been there to make sure you know the right questions to ask. But there's nothing wrong with just paying interest. Now, if you have a federal guaranteed or student loan, the government is pretty willing to work with you now on that. It's a little bit different for graduate school debt, but there are many vehicles that you can work that out. And there's even vehicles that work that out with credit card companies. Hey, I can't pay my credit card bill for the next couple of months because I'm reassessing and I had an illness in the family. I got to take care of things. Stay communicative with the people who lend you money. The thing that freaks them out the most is when all of a sudden you disappear and they can't find you. Let them know your financial situation. They don't have to know every detail, but let them know. If you do that, they'll work with you. Trust me, they will work with you. But always ask the questions and find out the right questions to ask.
Yeah, I think that gets back to, again, the discipline and not being in denial, right? Being in constant communication with yourself and with others.
Yeah, let me just interject with that, Sarah. Money should not be an embarrassment to you. Just because you don't have a lot of money is nothing wrong with that. You know, you watch Shark Tank and you watch all these fancy business shows and you watch all that nonsense out there and you think, oh, you're not cool if you don't have a lot of money, or you're not what's that Kardashian family or whatever, and all the real life size of the rich and famous or whatever. That means absolutely nothing. You should be comfortable with your money, what you make, with your culture, with your family history. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't let people intimidate you about money. All right, that's a key point.
Yeah, it's such a powerful message to end on. And I really love that. Just not having the shame around wherever you are, whatever step that you're at. So Megan said, as a last remark that she had to go, but this was so helpful. And I agree. And hopefully you all can just join me in virtually thanking Rick Hasse for his time and wisdom here today. And please do join us for the next round, which is
April 28th.
April
28th.
We can ask all these follow-up questions about credit and debt.
Yeah, that's going to be the whole session on that 28th is about debt. You're thinking about going to graduate school. You're thinking about how to pay off your student loan. You're thinking about buying a car. You're thinking about borrowing money to invest. Oh my God, I got a lecture on that one. Borrowing money, using your credit card to open up a Robinhood account. Really? No way. So we got a whole lots of cool things to talk about. And also, if any of you have like to give questions in advance, if you want to come and say, Mr. Hasse, you're talking about credit, here's something that I'd like you to dwell on in your discussion. I have this situation. Go ahead, send it to Lexi, send it to Sarah, or send it to me. If you have a question in advance, I'd be more than willing to put that as part of my presentation on the 28th.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much. I'll hang back in the Zoom room in case anyone has questions, but I so appreciate everyone taking the time.
Thank you, Prof.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Robert, do your homework tonight. Get back to doing your homework. Okay, everybody. Thanks, Al, for coming. Al Clark is there. Inga, you were on the phone the whole damn time I was talking. I saw that. You were on the phone. So you got a bad class participation. You were on the phone.